Hello, this is the video for the Chapter 10 Tech Project Part 3. So let's go ahead and scroll down and have a look at that. In this problem we will be investigating whether or not the results of a rolled die and a flip coin are independent events or not. Part A wants us to write out steps 1 and 2 on the printout using a 50% significance level. And it says, aren't we statistical daredevils, because typically we use a significance level of 1%, 5%, or 10%. To take a 50% risk of making a type 1 error would actually be rather foolish. We're doing it in this particular problem because I want the results to turn out differently for a lot of people in class from each other, so it is kind of unusual, but please do that since that's what I asked you for. And then when we go to write out steps 1 and 2, a lot of times people will take this part of the statement right there and say that's either HO or H1. But actually, in a way, this is kind of both or neither, because it says whether or not the results of these two events are independent. And if you're saying whether or not, you're not stating independent or dependent. You're kind of stating both, like you're trying to figure it out. And HO and H1 are not supposed to have that kind of wishy-washiness to them. So this part right there would be either HO or H1. The results of a rolled die and a flip coin are independent events. So that's very specific. It's picking a side. And then that's either H0 or H1, and then the other one would say dependent. So you can copy and paste that over as you do your HO or H1, and then you can paste it again, but just make sure you change it so one says independent and one says dependent, and look at your examples to the book to remember which goes where, but I will leave that to you. And then the next step is to run the application coin dice, which is located in the StatSims folder. But the tricky thing about this is if you have that folder still zipped where you can see the zipper on the folder, then you'll be able to open the program and it'll seem to run until you start trying to flip and roll the dice and the coin, and then it'll start giving you error messages. So make sure that you've unzipped it. Directions for that are up here at the top of the project, so make sure you follow those if you're currently working with a folder that has the zipper on it, and that'll get you in the right mode. Alright, so let me go ahead and open that up, and then we're going to enter our name, and we're going to enter 2000 for the number of flips and rolls, and we'll test it a few times and then click automatic to run it out. So I'll pull open the folder, and this is what it should look like. If they have kind of more of a greenish look, a lot of times that means you're still in the zipped folder, which is how you're going to end up getting the crashes. So I'm going to double click on coin dice, pull that into your window here. Make sure you type your name here, click a button to lock that in, change this to 2000, and then if I click flip roll, then I get tails on the coin and 6 on the die, and so I get a 1 here because that's the tails row with a 6. So one time I've got tails together with a 6. Flip again, now it's heads and a 4, so heads and a 4 just filled in. Another one, this time it was tails and a 5, so it just keeps doing that. And as we start getting repeats, you'll get higher frequencies there. So tails and 4 we've had 3 times now so far. So that's what these results mean. So now I can click automatic and let that run out and get all 2000 of them. It shouldn't take very long for that to happen. So we're already up to 500, so we should be there soon. And then we're going to take this screen and we're going to capture it and put it into our report. And then eventually we're going to transfer it over into StatCrunch, but let's let it finish its run. Almost there. And I use snipping tool a lot because I want just part of the screen, or because I'm going to mark up part of my output. In this case, I want the whole window and I don't need to mark anything, so Alt Print Screen is fine. There's actually no graphs that are being drawn by the program, so nothing will disappear when we do Alt Print Screen either, so it goes pretty smoothly. So I did my Alt Print Screen, and I will click over to my report, and I believe that's part B. So I'll Control V and paste that in. It's kind of past the margin a bit, so I'll pull that in a little bit and make it smaller, but still readable. Okay, so there's running the StatSims part. Now let's see where that puts us on the project. Load the data set, Chapter 10, Davis coin dice into StatCrunch. So now we're switching over to StatCrunch. You want to go into the meaningful statistics group, show all the data sets, and then look for that Chapter 10 Davis coin dice right there. And what that does is it loads it up something that's kind of like our output. Let me pull that StatSims window up here so you can see them together. So notice we have the tails and the heads, just like tails and heads here. And then we have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 across like this. So what we're going to do is enter our data into these squares. So it's a little annoying the way that's disappearing. Let's see if I can shrink this down so I can still see both. Okay, so now we go a little bit higher. Actually, I'll just move this down a bit. Okay, so how many times did I get tails with a 1? 142. So I'll type that in there, and then I would just keep going. So my next one is 141, and so on. So I'm going to stop there because you shouldn't be entering these numbers anyways. These are mine. Do your own simulation, right? And it's random, so you should get different stuff. So after you fill that in, you're going to be almost done. I'm just going to mention the rest and probably leave you to it, but let's look at it and see if there's anything tricky left. So let me expand this back. All right. So we're going to type in all those numbers like I just started showing you, and then you're going to capture your output so that I can see your numbers, and you'll be showing me both your StatSims window like this, and then you'll be showing me the capture from StatCrunch right here so that I can see that those numbers are matching up. So make sure they do, right? Make sure what your StatCrunch data looks like is just like your simulation right here, but don't expect your numbers to match mine because it is random. All right, and then what's next? Calculate your test statistic and the p-value by doing the following, and they start listing steps. So the steps they're listing here are the same ones as up above in number 2. So I'm not going to go through that. You could hopefully remember how to do it from just doing that problem above. If not, you can watch that video again. When you go to capture it, you can circle 3 and 4. If you use snipping tool, you can accomplish that all at once. And then you're going to write out steps 5 and 6 on the printout. Just a quick mention about the follow-up J. It says in reality the results of a coin and die do not affect each other. So that's the truth, right? If you flip a coin and get heads, what effect does that have on a die you're about to roll? And the answer, I think if you think about it, is none. So what I want you to think about is how does that affect HO? When you think about what I said here, does that make you feel like HO is true or is it false? And then in this spot right here, you're going to say what you did in step 5. Did you reject or not reject HO? And that actually will vary from person to person. You might even have a different answer right here than your partner because you have random data. So it should actually turn out about half the people in class reject and half do not reject. So don't be overly concerned if you get a different answer from your partner. But I want you to think about whether HO is true or false, whether you reject it or not, and then either tell me that you made a correct decision or a type 1 error or a type 2 error, whichever seems most appropriate. And to be honest with you, that answer could end up being any of those 3 things depending on your data. Okay, that's not quite right. Because of the answer to this question, it turns out it can be 2 things. But it is possible that you and your partner will have different answers from each other. But I'm going to let you finish that part off. I just wanted to show you how we were fitting together our StatSims output together with our StatCrunch data set where we're starting to put the numbers in. Just make sure you put all 12 before you run your test of independence. All right, hopefully that'll be helpful to you. Good luck as you finish it up.